Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the Caw Valley Chamber of Commerce, I would like to welcome you all to this candidate forum tonight. We would like to thank the City of St. Mary's for allowing us the use of this building this evening. And lastly, a thank you to the candidates up here for taking the time to be here, your willingness to answer questions, but most importantly, your willingness to run for public office and to potentially serve the community. This year, 2 out of the 5 city commission seats are up for election. The 4 gentlemen up here at this table are the ones running for those 2 spots. And the residents of St. Mary's will decide who those 2 are on Election Day, which, as a friendly reminder, is November 4th, exactly 3 weeks away. Tonight's format will be as follows. Each candidate will begin with a 2-minute introduction and opening statement. I will then pose 5 or 6 preset questions focused on current city issues. Candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to each question with rotation on who answers first. Nicole Kabler in the front will be giving you time prompts. Audience members, you will have the opportunity to present questions or to submit questions via the written cards on the back table. Select few will be chosen and presented during the forum towards the end. And then the evening will conclude with a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate. And without further delay, we will get started with introductions, starting on the far end of the table.
Thank you to the Caw Valley Chamber of Commerce for organizing this, and thank you to all of you who came. As the father of young children and the husband of a St. Mary's native, I brought my family here because I knew it was the best place for them. The city is full of talented, working hard to build a strong and beautiful community. If elected, I will focus on long-term maintenance and improvements of our facilities and infrastructure, so that these involved citizens can keep making this an even better place to live and to raise a family. I taught high school for 7 years. In that time, I saw repeatedly how essential it is to speak clearly, openly, and graciously about goals and processes, to treat everyone involved as a rational person, explaining the reasons behind decisions. I learned to motivate by aiming towards a shared understanding of the purpose. Because of this, even when there was still disagreement with a student, a parent, or a fellow teacher, we could count on goodwill and a continuing desire on all sides to find an optimal outcome. Currently, I am working as a software developer. When writing code in a space of effectively unlimited possibilities, one quickly learns the need to relentlessly prioritize. The limiting factor in the world of bits is time, and the requests for features and bug fixes never end. So you inevitably end up with an ever-growing backlog of things that you're not working on, and you have to politely explain to people why their requests are not being taken care of. In just the same way, there are so many great things the city government could be doing, but resources are limited. And there will be disagreements. There are disagreements about what should be prioritized. So if elected, I will strive to the best of my abilities to identify the most essential projects and keep those fixed at the top of the list. I hope to have your support in the upcoming election. Let us keep making St. Mary's even better. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerard. My name is Bill Basler. I've been a St. Mary's resident for, since the late 80s. Brought my family here, raised my family. Now I have grandkids coming up. I don't have all the answers to all the problems that the city may face. I have a lot of questions. I don't have a lot of answers. I think this gentleman here makes a pretty good case. I'm not going to say I'm better than these guys or they're worse than me. I don't have all the answers, like I said, but I think I would maybe appreciate your votes. It's like one of those kind of things, be careful what you wish for. But I do have, I agree with a lot of things Gerard said about, limited resources, and the same thing. I want infrastructure and all that. I think I would consider myself pro-business, pro-police, pro-fire, the kind of things that, just kind of make sense, I guess. Like I said, I'm just a working stiff. I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and see what happens. Thanks, y'all, for coming.
I'm going to stand, if you don't mind. My name is Rafael Ramos. I've also been referred to, and I may be more commonly known as Gerard Keiser's husband. That is Bob and Marianne, by the way. I know we have several of those. Not sure they're related in any way. I'm an ESOP lawyer, which means I can't get you out of jail. I can't write you a will or a trust. But I do deal with private businesses that sell. And so what that means is it gives me direct insight into decision makers at really successful companies. We're talking, small ones, call it $10 million in enterprise value, up to $1.4 billion that I've personally worked in here in St. Mary's. And so the goal would be to apply some of those processes that I'm exposed to, seeing how they make decisions, how they make their businesses successful, and see if we can incorporate those processes into what we're doing here. I feel like there might be a lot of things that we all agree on here. So to the extent that we have some of those, we should prioritize that and actually make those happen. And where there's disagreement, again, I'm not a litigator, so it's not my way or the highway. The goal is to make a deal. So I appreciate everybody for coming out. I'd appreciate your vote, and I will cede the rest of my time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gerard Kleinsmith. I am currently a member of the St. Mary's City Commission for about the last 3 years now. I am a dispatch supervisor and transportation manager for Harvester's Food. And I have been living here in St. Mary's. I came here in 1982 to attend St. Mary's Academy. Left for a while, and then my wife and I came back to raise our 5 children here, and we've been here since 1999. I appreciate that the Chamber put this event on tonight. I really like the size of the crowd. I wish I saw everybody here at our City Commission meetings every first and third Tuesday. And if I'm reelected, I'm going to continue down the path that I have been on for the last 3 years, and that is prioritizing infrastructure, but also making sure that the voices of every citizen in St. Mary's is heard. A couple years ago, I don't know if you all remember, we had this little issue come up with the library, and it caused quite a stir. And I remember attending one of the meetings prior to being sworn in. And at the meeting, a gentleman who I've served with on the commission in the past, and I have a great deal of respect for, he's here this evening, Doyle Pearl, got up and said, and I hope I'm quoting directly, he looked at the 5 city commissioners, he said, "You all represent everyone in St. Mary's." And that is so true, and we have to remember that. We don't represent just certain people or certain demographics. We represent everyone, and that's what I will continue to do, and I ask for your vote. Thank you. Do I keep it?
All right, thank you all very much for your introductions and opening statements. We'll keep the microphone here and work our way down the left end of the table for you gentlemen. First question. What do you think are the top 2 to 3 challenges currently facing St. Mary's, and if elected, or re-elected in your case, how do you intend to address them and in what order?
Thank you, Joel. Infrastructure is, I think, our biggest challenge right now, highest priority. We have done a few things over the last few years to address some of the problems that we have in town. We have water lines and sewer lines that are over 100 years old. We have an aging electrical system that needs to be upgraded. And we are taking the steps to do those projects. Right now we're currently doing a sewer project up in Lakeview. And I know it doesn't sound exciting, but it's the stuff that has to get done. Every day it has to get done. We have a great team, great crew in the city working on those projects. I also would prioritize and continue to prioritize the needs, the wants, the everything that the people of St. Mary's want. They want to call St. Mary's home for a lot of reasons. And they want to be able to go out and enjoy living here, do things in the community and not have to travel and take their families 15, 20, 30 miles to do things. So I'm looking at that. I've worked very hard on trying to get the golf course reopened. And if I'm reelected, I will continue down that path. Thank you.
Thanks, Gerard. So let's put a pin on the two things that Gerard just mentioned. I think we can address those in a later question as well. As far as my two priorities here, it'd be to increase single-family home opportunities. So this is my first time running for council. I don't know the processes that happen, though part of that would be educating myself in what the hurdles are. It seems like the city has invested a lot of time and resources into some plans, and so I would like to understand why those stall. And after discovering that, then seeing if we can overcome that. If it's a county issue, maybe we need to be involved for the city, lobbying at the county level. If it's a money issue, then let's talk. Maybe there's something we could do with the landowners. As far as the other priority, it'd be addressing those challenges that are kind of common to rural communities. So specifically early childhood development for developmentally delayed kids, as well as diverse employment opportunities for the people here. And so that second priority, again, we have to be mindful of making sure that the city doesn't extend itself into places that it does not belong, but it would involve working with nonprofits that are already here, like the Chamber of Commerce, like the Experience St. Mary's, other nonprofits, to make those happen. If all it needs is more public support and maybe to be held accountable at the city commission level, that's something that I would be supportive of.
Thank you. I agree with both these gentlemen on a lot of their points. I think infrastructure is a big thing. Like Gerard said, we have sewer and water that's 100 years old. Those need to be addressed. Business opportunities. You mentioned business opportunities for folks. I'm pro-business. I'm not exactly sure how that would manifest itself from the city commission level or the city level, but at least not put roadblocks in the way of businesses that are coming in here or would like to come in here, especially if they can offer jobs for folks. Infrastructure, pro-business. I'm pro-police and fire. I think we need to probably do something with the fire station up north. We've been talking about that for a while too, I believe. City Commission has, based on some of the meetings that I've been to in the past. That would be a priority. One of the things that's needs to be addressed, and I'm not exactly sure how and what that would look like, is revenue. How does the city generate revenue to pay for things like infrastructure? Is it a tax? Is it, raise the rates on sewer and water bill? I don't know. I don't know how all that stuff works out, but those are things that do need to be addressed. Thank you.
I believe the three chief challenges that we're facing are infrastructure, walkability, and housing. I believe Mr. Kleinsmith spoke well about infrastructure. It is an issue that every city in America is facing, as well as housing, which of course is a good issue to have if people want to live here. As for walkability, this town is small enough that one could walk anywhere in 20 or 30 minutes, even less. There's often not a safe way to do that. You can't walk to Ray's on sidewalks. You have to walk through parking lots. You can't walk to the Immaculata from south of Alma and east of 63, or to the public school from north of Alma and east of 63 very readily. And there's lots of kids here. And pedestrian fatalities annually have increased 80% since 2009. So I think this is something that we really need to address. I know the City Commission has been addressing it. We should build more sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your answers. Sorry about that. Next question. This one, Mr. Keiser, we'll keep the microphone on your end of the table and work our way back to the podium. Do you believe the city should actively pursue grants or alternative revenue sources for projects, and how would you balance community improvements? Do you believe taxation is a viable option?
I think it's worth distinguishing between three types of grants, although they're not mutually exclusive. So there's grants for essential services, there's grants for development, and there's grants for sort of recreational and educational facilities. I would definitely prefer if we were simply taxed less by the county and the state and the federal government, so it was easier for the city to raise rates themselves. But that's not how we live. It seems that small municipalities are expected to apply for grants, unfortunately. Wamego has just got a grant to pay for most of their $10 million or so sewer treatment plant. That would have been a pretty huge rate increase if they had not done that. For development, there's a lot of regulations that limit development if you don't get grants. You can't be Pa Ingalls and go out and build your cabin anymore. It would be illegal even if you wanted to. As for recreation, I think there you start running into the tragedy of the commons. We cannot have everyone trying to get grants for things that are not truly necessary. And we could say that increasing taxes is a viable option, but I do not think it is a very desirable one. All right, that's all my time. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I would be maybe more or less philosophically opposed to grants if they were just coming from the federal government with strings attached. If there are grants from private entities or businesses for a specific thing, I don't think I would be necessarily opposed to that. But mostly just opposed in a philosophical, if it's the federal government saying, well, we'll give you money, but then you got to dance to our tune. But yeah, the point that, lower taxes on the federal, state, and county levels would give us a little more flexibility in raising taxes locally. Well, good luck with that, pal. I don't disagree with you. But yeah, I don't think I'm opposed to grants necessarily if they're coming from more of a private or an industry rather than a federal government coming down the pike with demands or whatever. But yeah, we do need to probably pursue that if the opportunity is available, I would say.
Thank you. In short, I'd be in favor of applying for grants. I would ask two questions every single time, though. As Mr. Basler here hit the nail on the head, what are the strings attached? The city got a grant when it bought the land for the golf course. There's some serious strings attached. Here we are. We're not going to give away the farm for a little bit of money now. So that, of course, is always the first question, regardless of where the grant is coming from. And I think the second question is, okay, who's in charge of that work stream? Like, are we expecting the city commission to be in charge of applying for those grants and remaining accountable for that and doing all that work? Or are we, if we're talking about grants, are you looking to hire that out by increasing the city? I think with grants, if that's the direction that the city wants to take, it might be very objective to see whether or not this person is doing their job. They bring in more grants than it is that it costs to keep them here. Maybe that is a viable option. As far as taxes go, I feel that is sort of a path of last resort. And of course, the city can always raise money through bonds. And when it comes to that topic, I would generally be in favor of doing so when it comes to projects that have a return. The idea being that with that return, then we can use that money to fund some of the improvements and to fund some of the parks and recreation that the city needs. Again, this kind of goes back to the city development, or the subdivision development. If there was a way that the city could get involved in that, and I'll talk about that a little bit further on, and make some profit from that then we can use to fund these improvements or to fund a better park, I think that's something we should consider.
Grants, I always have been, I always will be opposed to government grants. I don't want somebody in Minnesota or somebody in Texas having to pay for projects that we have here in St. Mary's. I am not opposed to grants from private foundations, private organizations. We pursued a grant for the golf course. We weren't able to get that moving forward. We didn't have the votes on the commission, but I'm not opposed to those types of grants. That was not a government grant, but I will never be in favor of government grants. We are taxed excessively in the state of Kansas, at the state level, county level, city level. And I'd like to see us some way reduce those taxes. And then when you say revenue sources, I've never liked that term when it comes to government. Government doesn't get revenue. We take money. Government takes money from taxpayers. That's generally how they get their money. It's not, we do provide services. We'll talk more about those later. But generally speaking, when we tax people, we're not providing services. We're just taking their money. So we better be good stewards of that money. And would I be in favor of looking at increasing taxes? I wouldn't want to if we didn't have to. Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much for those answers. For this next one, we will start with Mr. Basler and then work our way to the left. In your opinion, does St. Mary's need to focus on increasing revenue or decreasing costs? What measures would you support in accomplishing your position?
Probably the answer is yes to both. Probably need to increase revenue and decrease costs. I mean, if there's a way to lower costs, hopefully the city has been, looking into that. I would say yes, we need to do both. It's probably need to look, if you're going to redo a 100-year-old sewer system, it's going to cost money. So you're going to have to raise money for that. But if there's a way to reduce costs, I'm not sure. I don't have access to the budget, or at least I haven't asked to look at the budget, so I don't know where the city needs to cut their costs, but I would say that, yeah, we probably need to look into both of those.
I'm not quite sure where the city, unfortunately, would reduce costs. If you look at the budget, it is already quite lean. As for increasing revenue, it depends. If there's essential services that aren't being met, then you kind of have to do something. You might have to increase taxes or utility rates. Of course, we wouldn't want to do that, but we need police and fire and water. Certainly I would look for ways to avoid that. I'm not sure what else there would be to be said about that.
When we look at some of the projects that we're working on, sewer lines, water lines, electrical projects, yes, we do have to increase those rates. We're looking at it. We're looking at putting money aside for the projects that are coming down, that we're doing now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So yes, those rates have to be looked at. And we will probably have to increase them if we want to keep up with the demands of the city, of the community. We have a lot of people that live here. They have a lot of need for these services, and we have to maintain them. So yes, I do think we've talked recently, we have been talking about increasing those rates, and I am on board with that. As far as decreasing costs, I agree with Mr. Keiser. We're pretty trim. We cut it pretty trim right now. It's pretty trim right now. We do a lot of cost cutting. We look at it all the time, what we're spending our money on. Could we, instead of buying a brand new truck, should we buy a used truck? Instead of, brand new equipment, should we look at refurbishing some equipment? So cutting costs, I don't see that as a viable option in the near future, but it is something we always have to keep in mind.
I'm going to sound like a broken record here. So as Gerard alluded, you can find the budgets, you can find the audited financials online. For 2024, there were 1.8 million in expenditures from the general fund alone, and it hasn't broken down where these things are going to. And in my personal opinion, it seems pretty objectively reasonable. And there's 200,000 for administration, 165,000 for the fire department, 700,000 about for the police department. I think that's one of the bigger expenditures. And it also shows you the sources of revenue. Local sales tax was about 530,000. Ad valorem taxes, 577,000, and even has municipal court fees at 13,000. So when you ask about what's our opportunity for increased revenue, but obviously we need our cops handing out more tickets, right? No, I'm kidding. No, one of the ways, if it's infrastructure, I look at that as sort of, if you have a business and you have equipment, what you should be charging for it should be enough to be able to repair that piece of equipment. So if that involves raising rates, 100% for that. I also think, if you notice, sales tax was one of the bigger sources of revenue that we have. If we focus on those types of businesses and promote them, maybe if we promote tourism to St. Mary's, we can increase that source of revenue. If we build a subdivision where we have more people paying property taxes, that's also another source of revenue. And, we have these parks that are being used by more than just the people who live here. There's about 2,800 people here in town, but there's almost just as much out in the surrounding areas that come and use our park. We're not paying for it in the same way that we are. If we just have, little by little, put in another subdivision that helps pay into that, we can afford with those profits, and I say that in quotes, to help pay for those upgrades.
All right, for this next one, Mr. Ramos, you'll start this one and we'll go to the right. What is your view on development, residential and commercial, in St. Mary's over the next 10 years? What kinds of growth would you encourage or limit, and why? What is the city's role in that growth?
Right. So, as I think it's been kind of apparent, I'm really in favor for single-family housing in a dense development. Right. If the city is going to invest money into making this happen, then the revenue that's generated by those services that it's providing, by servicing those areas, we want to have as many houses as possible there to be able to pay that back. I'm also in favor then of commercial development when it goes in line to increasing sales taxes, right? I'm generally in favor of all business, but we should prioritize that which brings in the most revenue. There are also more industrial development. I'm a little bit less in favor of that, to the extent some would say not in my backyard, like if that's kind of an issue. But those are kind of my three priorities. As far as the city commission is involved, I think if we have the city, so the problem with developing now, you say, give it to a private developer, they're the ones who should build that subdivision. Well, the problem is that in the business world, they have to get a return within X time. That thought does not apply to the same degree at a city. Our return horizon is much longer when you're looking at it through the eyes of a city. So I think if the city can work with some landowners who are always, and it's their right to get as much as they can for their land, maybe there's opportunity there for a joint venture where, we go in 75 and they go in 25, we develop it, they get their 25 of the sales from those lots and we get the 75. They'll get a return on their land, arguably maybe more if it's developed, it'd just be over a longer period of time. Just brainstorming, but that's kind of the things that I'd be interested in.
Development. City government, any government, we provide the infrastructure and then we get the hell out of the way. I am not in favor of the city being in the business of residential or commercial development, but I am in favor of providing the necessary things that the developers need, the infrastructure. We have a housing problem in St. Mary's. We all know that. I mean, it's hard, especially if you're a young family starting out. And we can't burden people with undue taxes and expect them to build here. We have to provide the services they need and then get out of the way and let them do it, because private industry has been doing it, and they've been doing it right for a lot longer than government ever has. So generally, just get out of the way. And I would like to see both commercial and residential in the next 10 years increase. Obviously, we all want to see that. But we really need to be there. We need to provide the services. and then remove ourselves and get out of the way and let them do their job.
I would be in favor, definitely, of more residential and commercial development and industrial to some extent. There is a large amount of manufacturing talent that is being developed in the city, and that's where a lot of the money comes from. With residential development, one does have to be careful because initially it is a big source of revenue, but over time that is going to age, and then you have more old infrastructure and it becomes a cost. In terms of how to do it, again, there are not really easy answers. We are somewhat geographically constrained. As for public-private partnerships to get it done, that would depend so much on the context. I don't think I could really give any thoughts on if somebody had a specific plan, but in the absence of that, I wouldn't want to say anything about it. We'll just have to be good for the city.
Yeah, I think everybody knows we need more housing in this town, but I don't know what we do if we don't have land that we can, the city doesn't own a bunch of land that we can, sell to a developer that I'm aware of. So we're kind of, like you said, we're geographically constrained with what we can do. The idea that Mr. Ramos has about, making a deal with some landowners, well, I don't know if I would be 100% opposed to that. Does sound like an interesting concept. But yeah, it's just, I don't know that the city has the wherewithal to provide land for homes and or businesses. We don't really have property that we have. I don't think we do, that we're just laying around doing nothing with. So I don't know how we proceed with that one. That's a question above my pay grade, at least at this point. You want to start down here?
Yeah, we'll start down at the end. As a reminder, if you have any questions, if the audience has any questions you would like to write down, you can hold them up. Nate can come by and grab them, or you can put them in the box in the back. So 2 questions left that we have put together ahead of time. We'll start with you, Mr. Keiser, and work our way down. Do you see transparency as an issue in our city government? If so, how would you improve it?
I think in an objective sense, with the Open Meetings Act and all of the meetings are recorded, one could say that the government is transparent. One can get access to the budget, and I think it's posted online even. Now, possibly the city could be more proactive about sharing what's going on. There could be more blog updates and so forth. And some of this is probably just because there is no town newspaper, and that's a huge source of transparency. And of course, the city government can't really address that issue. Now, if there's anyone who's concerned about particular issues of transparency, then that is definitely something that would need to be addressed.
I don't think there's an issue with transparency. I think the city is fairly open. You have open meetings. They're recorded. They're online. You can go back and watch them later, my understanding. And you can go down to the city hall and go up to the desk and say, hey, I got a question about this, and they have to provide the information to you. I don't think it's a problem, at least not one that I'm aware of. So I think we're probably okay in that regard.
Again, the problem with being the third person to answer is that they steal all your thunder. So I agree. I feel like objectively it's pretty transparent. As they said, the budgets are online, the minutes are online. I guess the recordings are online there too. So when it comes to lack of information, how much of that is my fault by not putting in the effort of attending the meetings and all that? If I could put forward like a suggestion, and maybe Gerard here can correct me if this is already a thing, is allowing for electronic participation of the city commissioners in the meeting. I don't know, maybe some of us travel for work, maybe there's inclement weather, but if there was a way for the meetings to be broadcasted real time via Teams or Zoom, and allowing at least the city commissioners to participate in that and say, if you're just a regular citizen, you could submit your question through the chat, and as long as you're not like trolling or something, it would actually get the attention. I think that's something that I would be supportive of.
So, to answer your question, the meetings are broadcast live, but I like your idea about people being able to be involved even if they're not there. My first thing I would say is come to the meetings. I look at this group of people here and I see one person, Teresa. She comes to every meeting. Without fail, she comes to every meeting. The press doesn't come to every meeting unless it's a hot button issue, like when the library we were going through all the issues with the library. But I beg you all, please come to the meetings, challenge us, ask us questions, get up there. And, we never turn anybody away. You can ask all the questions you want. We'll sit there all night if we have to answer them. So, no, I don't think there's any problem with transparency. We have a city staff that will, if you ask, they will provide you with whatever you need. So to improve it, though, I would say more people come to the meetings. That would improve transparency. I've had so many people ask me so many times, hey, what'd you guys talk about the other night? Come to the meetings.
All right, thank you very much. For this next one, we'll start with you, Commissioner Kleinsmith, and we'll work our way back down. The city is already heavily involved in parks and recreation, and there has been discussion about improvements. What is your view on the priorities of parks and recreation for the city of St. Mary's?
We need the parks. We want the parks. We want them to succeed. We want them to flourish. The city does play an active role in that. And sometimes we don't move fast enough. And I think that's kind of what we're facing right now. We've got a lot of good ideas. We've got a lot of people that are really excited, really interested in improving the parks. And I want to see us move forward with that. Will it cost the city some money? Yes, it will. We got to figure out how we're going to pay for that. If we decide to spend tax dollars to do those improvements, we got to figure out how we're going to do it. But I'm for it. I love the enthusiasm of the people that are really behind these ideas. And I don't want it to stop just because the wheels of government move slowly. It's just as frustrating for me that those wheels are moving as slowly as they are as it is for you guys. So I think we need to keep our feet to the fire, keep pounding us, keep coming to the meetings. Don't let these issues just wither on the vine. Let's make these things happen, because I think the people of St. Mary's want it to happen.
Yeah, I think parks are very important. But when it comes to issues of priority, again, my priority is going to be focusing on things that increase revenue in town. The idea then is that with that revenue, we can set aside more and more money to actually get these park things done. Maybe there are grants out there that we can apply for. As long as there's no strings attached, I'd be totally supportive of that. But again, my priority will always be on focusing on growth. We're in a town where, for better or for worse, people are having 6 kids on average, right? It's not a right to live next to your family or near them, but it is definitely a blessing. It's a giant support having them nearby. If we can have places for them to live, and that also causes the city to make a little bit more money, and then we can fix up all the parks and all the quality of life improvements around town, I think that's a win-win. And I think we can do that. We just got to prioritize and taking care of the city so that it continues running as is, and then slowly growing into what it's become.
I would take a little bit of, I would just like back up just a little bit. And the premise of your question, I don't know that I agree. You said that the city is heavily involved in parks and recreation. I would like for you to describe heavily involved, because I don't think we are. We have a park. We used to have a golf course. We used to have a pool. We have a park that's barely functional for the kids to play on. And it seems like the only time it gets worked on is when a bunch of volunteers get together and do something. So define the city being heavily involved in parks and recreation. That's, I mean, we have ball fields, we have soccer fields, we spend money on those. They don't, they all lose money. So the argument that, well, the golf course is losing money, the pool's losing money, well, that to me is not a viable argument because ball fields lose money too, and we still have them. So I don't know that I would agree that the city is heavily involved in parks and recreation. I believe it needs to be, though.
So there could definitely be more done to improve the parks. Unfortunately, it is just a question of priorities. It has to come after the essential services. And I would be reluctant to do significant tax increases to make that happen. And I don't think it's reasonable to think that any of these things are actually going to make money. I think there's more that the city could do to get volunteer help. There's plenty of parks around the Midwest that have regular volunteer groups that work on them. Might not be the best solution, but without raising taxes, that's probably what we would have to do if we wanted these to be better. Now, I know there's a lot of plans for completely redesigning parks that people are talking about. I think it's good to have a big plan. I think it's also essential to look for incremental improvements and not issuing a big bond and getting a grant and completely redesigning everything, which carries a much bigger risk. Thank you.
All right, we have one question from the audience that seemed to be a pretty common theme, so we're going to ask that one. This one will start with Mr. Basler and work its way to your gentleman's left. If it seems that nearly all of us want more single-family homes, why has it not been happening?
Well, there again, I don't know that the city has any control over building homes, and does the city have land to be able to do that? I don't think the city is standing in the way of homes being built, not to my knowledge. In fact, it seems to me like if I understand correctly, the city several years ago, didn't they change the zoning to where homes can be built on smaller lots within the city limits? So I don't think the city is restricting that. So I'm not sure that the city is yeah, that would be my answer.
I think to echo what you said, the city can only do so much to make sure that there's more homes, unless we want to be like California and try to build them ourselves, which didn't work out so well for them. I mean, mainly it's deregulation to some degree as far as that's actually desirable, and making sure the infrastructure is there.
I think you can count on maybe one or two hands the number of available lots within the city limits that you could actually build a house on right now. So then the question is, do we annex more land? And if we do, which direction do we go? Do we go north? Do we go south, east, west? If we don't annex more land, then I would say, as I said earlier, provide the infrastructure, but we can't magically create land. We can't build more land. I mean, it's what we got is what we got. So unless we're going to annex and move the city limits out, there's not a whole lot that the city can do except provide the infrastructure, don't put undue burdens on the homeowners or the property builders, and stay out of the way.
I'm going to preface this by saying, again, I haven't run in government here before, so I can't tell you with certainty what the issue is, but I can give a guess. And I think it's just a mix of regulation and money. Maybe the county is restricting what can be built outside of city limits, and so then the analysis that a private developer takes into account when they're looking into whether a subdivision development is profitable tends to being likely more unprofitable than not. So again, I would think that that's why private developers kind of lean away from that. On the city side, that analysis is just not the same. While yes, I'm talking about making as much as we can in profits to help fund all of these improvements, that time horizon for a city is much longer. And I think there may be room there to talk to some of these landowners who would be interested in a return on the sale of their land also along that long time horizon, see if we can work together. Annex some land, work with them that's towards the north or the west. Yeah, the north or the west of the city. I understand there's some challenges south and east. And maybe there's a joint venture there, a partnership that we can put together that would make this work.
That's all we have for questions. Mr. Ramos, we'll start with you now. It is time for our 2-minute closing statements, and then we'll work our way to the right.
Sure. So again, thank you for coming. I felt like there was a lot that we agreed on here. So I want to remind everyone that in the event that you came here with already your mindset on who you were voting for, maybe at least it was one of the two positions, right? So I think, or I would hope that you strongly consider me, if not for your first position, then for your second. Again, in that I'm willing to work with the people here. I'm willing to educate myself. I'm going to say it right here. I'm not going to come in and arrogantly demand that things be done the way that I say they should be run. I need to figure out why it is that we're running things the way that we are. But again, with this mindset into maybe putting in together processes that would help these priorities or these initiatives actually come to fruition. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you to the chamber. Thank you all for coming. I love this town. I love this community. I love what it stands for. I love the people. And over the last 30 or so years, 35 years that I've been here, I've met a lot of people, a lot of neighbors, a lot of friends, and they're good. We're good people. Everybody in this town are good people. I really believe that. And I think as a city commissioner, I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning. We have to represent each and every one of those people in this community. We have to do our best to help each other. We as government have to do our best to provide the necessary services, but then get out of the way. Like I said, I've said that before. Get out of the way. Let people prosper. Let them build their dreams. Let them build their homes. Let them build their businesses. And get out of their way. Do not be a hindrance. But provide the things that the city wants. There's been a lot of talk about recreational activities for the city. I'm in favor of it. Come to us with your ideas. Let's figure out how to get it done. And I ask again, please vote for me when you go cast your ballot. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank again the Chamber for organizing this and all you who came to support our civic institutions. And I would be honored by your vote this election day. Let us keep making St. Mary's better.
Yeah, my campaign slogan was "Make St. Mary's Great Again." Some people said, well, wait a minute, it's already great. And I said, okay, yeah, but we could probably make it greater. But I think any of these gentlemen up here would be a good choice. I think these guys are well-spoken, got some good ideas. I kind of feel like a midget among giants here with these other three guys here. But I think, I don't know, I guess I don't know that I can offer anything better than these guys can. I'm here, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring, and if you folks want to have me on the city commission, then I'll jump in with both feet. Thank you for coming out.
All right. Thank you all again very much for candidates for coming down and taking the time to be here and answer all these questions. And like I said, most importantly, for your willingness to serve in public office and to serve your community. So thank you again, and we wish you all the best of luck on November 4th. I think these gentlemen deserve a big round of applause for their time.